name is Dan of Dan Verson Games, and I'm going to be showing you a small sample mission of Warfighter Shadow War, and I hope you enjoy it. So before we get started with the mission, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what is new and cool here with Warfighter Shadow War. The first thing, that's the sound of a dog drinking, which is not included in the boxes. The first thing is every mission now has an insertion and an extraction point, and you have about half a dozen of each of those cards to choose from. Each one has a cost. In this case, I'm going to be entering the mission with a halo, which stands for high altitude low parachute opening, so that way the plane will parachute out of the plane miles away, will then glide on in, release the chutes. The cost of that is 5 resource points. When we're done with the mission, hopefully it's successful, we will leave through helo, which is short for helicopter, and the risk of a helicopter extraction is that once we activate the objective, the helicopter becomes a targetable target out on the battlefield for the hostiles. They can actually shoot it, and if they destroy the helicopter, then the mission ends in failure. We're here in North Korea. Our mission is to take out a VIP North Korean general here. And just a few things of what is new also. First thing is here on the mission card, normal mission card setup, you have your resources, which I get 58, 17 turns, which I will adjust, which seems like an awful lot. But one of the things that happens here is that there'll be times of high noise and high activity, and then you've got to let that noise settle down or else the hostiles will hear you. One of the big threats in Shadow Wars is not only the hostiles, which will shoot you, but as well as if you make too much noise, that will alert them and then bring reinforcements onto the board and end your mission. So you have to maintain engaging the hostiles as well as your noise level, so you can have brief engagement periods, then you let the noise settle down, and so on. The objective is in location number 5, and the loadout here is base. 2 new things on this mission card. We have a noise reduction and an alarm reaction time. During the soldier turn, as my guys move and they shoot, this noise counter is going to climb higher and higher. As it does, the chances of them pausing to see, hey, what was that, or straight out going for the alarm gets higher and higher. At the end of every turn, I'm going to be able to reduce the noise by 3, but for every hostile card still in play, it goes back up by 1. So the more hostiles out there kind of milling around, the better the chances of them finding me, so that's what that represents. And then, in the case that one of the hostiles does hear me, goes for the alarm, I can't stop him, and that counter reaches going for the alarm, I will then have 4 actions, not turns, but actions, in order to hopefully finish my objective before reinforcements start pouring onto the board and things go bad. So, to show you what I've done here for my setup with my points, I have Douglas, a player soldier, Fan, a non-player soldier, and Conway, a squad soldier. Because it's a night mission, each of them are equipped with night goggles. On Douglas here, I have an ANPEQ-15, which is an amazing device. It's a little box that you'll see a lot of times in photographs stuck out on the end of an M4. This thing has a daylight laser for targeting, it has a nighttime laser for targeting, it also has a nighttime laser spotlight that you can use that ties into the goggles, that way you can get a good heat vision of what's going on. It also helps your aiming in the game. My main guy here is equipped with a suppressed MP5 submachine gun. Fan here is equipped with a suppressed M4 carbine. And Conway, of course, being a squatty soldier, doesn't have weapons. The way noise works in shooting is a section of the game that I'm really happy with how it's come out. If you fire normal ammo, for every attack die that you roll, you generate 10 points worth of noise, which you can see is going to become a real problem real fast. However, because I'm using a suppressed, relatively small 9mm caliber weapon, the suppressor takes 4 points off of that noise. So if I fire standard ammo, instead of generating 10 points of noise, I'm only going to generate 6 points of noise per die. So if I cut loose with a full auto suppress, I'm going to generate 18 points worth of noise bad time. However, if I'm firing black ammo or subsonic ammo, instead of generating 10 points of noise, I only generate 5 points of noise, minus 4 points for my suppressor, 1 point per die, much quieter. Now the M4 here, firing a higher, caliber-wise it's smaller, but there's more powder and, all that. So instead of the suppressor taking 4 points off, the M4 suppressor only takes 3 points off, so it's going to be generating 2 points of noise per die. Now, one of the things that is very nice in this game that's a whole new addition to Warfighter is that you get to customize the ammo load of all of your weapons. So right now we have 3 kinds of ammo. We have black ammo, which is based off of the Blackout .300 caliber weapon ammo, which what's special about that is much of the noise that a bullet makes is when it exits the weapon and it breaks the sound barrier. Well, if you have a bullet fire subsonically, it doesn't make that crack, it makes far less noise. However, it's also going to hit with a lot less energy. So what the black ammo does is it has larger slugs. So that way what it lacks in speed it makes up for in mass, and it hits just as hard and just as deadly. But it's kind of rare, hard to come by, and so what happens is you have to pay 1 resource point for every counter. So good old Douglas here has 2 counters worth of black ammo, and Fan also has 2 counters worth of black ammo. If I happen to burn through that, then I'm going to have to rely on subsonic ammo. This is normal subsonic ammo, so it has lighter loads. It's not going to break that 1100 feet per second sound barrier, so it will be quieter, and I don't have to pay for it. The drawback though is that it's not going to hit as hard, so I'm going to suffer -2 on penetrations for all of that subsonic ammo. If things truly go bad, the alarm is sounded, the hostiles are spilling onto the battlefield, then I'm going to go with my standard ammo, so that way I get all my normal stats, no cost, and at that point noise doesn't matter because I know that I'm here and I'm going to be running to complete the objective. So, to get started, my 3 soldiers begin in no sweat mission. I'm not going to play this out action card by action card. I'm just using like a generic hand of just cards here, and that way I can track how many cards I have in my hand. So I'm going to assume that one of these is a location card, so I discard it, and I draw houses. So I'm like stealthing my way back through back alleys and stuff. In order to play this card, I have to spend an action, so that's fine. And all of these night rules are built on the night rules first seen in the Foot Locker of Wave 2, and then we just threw in more detail and more interesting things like the noise system. This card has 3 points worth of entrance discard plus 2 more points because it's a night card. So I'd have to discard 5 cards to get into here, but luckily I've got night goggles, so my guys will be able to get around that if I expend some energy doing that thing. With a 58-point mission, I have 3 points worth of hostiles coming out. So, just like in the Foot Locker night rules, the cards come into play unrevealed, so I don't know exactly what they are. So this is a 1-point hostile. Here's my 2nd point, and unfortunately I drew 2 more points, which is my limit on that. Takes me up and over my 3, so I stop drawing. On the unrevealed side, if you're not familiar with the Night War rules, they tend to have more reticles, higher defenses, higher abilities, because I'm not exactly sure what's out there. And I can fire and I can engage them, but if I do that, I'm going to probably make all kinds of noise. Now, a new thing is that they don't know that I'm here. So each of these hostile cards starts off with a counter that says unaware, because they are unaware that I am here. And you'll see why that's important here in a minute. So, the only person that I have that can engage a target at range 1 is Fan with his M4 carbine, and unfortunately out there he's sitting on a 9, which is not great. So what I want him to do is close in, take some range 0 shots. And in order to do that, I would need to pay 3 plus 2, I need to pay 5 discards minus his 3 movement, which I'd have to pay 5 discards, which would pretty much deplete my hand. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is, because he's an NPS, I'm going to discard a card for him, and that will allow him to use his night goggles, so that way he doesn't suffer from those night movement penalties this turn, which brings his movement cost down to a 3. He has a movement of 3, So by spending a single action, I can move him on in there. Now, whenever a soldier moves, they generate 2 points worth of noise. However, if you roll their shadow skill or higher, they only generate 1 point of noise. Well, Fan in this case has a shadow skill of 9, so I'm hoping for a 9 or a 10. I don't get it, so he generates 2 points worth of noise. Anytime the noise counter goes up the track, you roll, if there's any hostiles in play, you roll to see which random hostile might have heard that movement. So, they have, because the noise level is so low, they have no chance of just flat out going for the alarm, but one of them might pause. On a 3 or less, he will pause. Nobody's pausing, so everything's fine. So now that he's in there, I can actually start trying to, I can shoot him now if I wanted to, but that's a little risky. So the first thing I want to do is I want to try to identify who is that heavy 2-point target out there. Now Conway over here has only range 0 attacks. His move-in is a 2. It's going to take a lot of effort to get him in there, and then he probably won't be all that effective anyway. So what he's going to do is I'm going to use one of his actions to use his night goggles in order to identify this 2-point hostile out here. And it turns out that it's a shadow. So we just saw some random movement. We thought it was guys. Turns out to be nothing. So that's kind of handy. And I'm going to have him do the same thing with the next guy. Well, it has 2 reticles. I want to try to eliminate like a small force if I can. So I'm actually going to have him try to identify this guy. So he spends an action to do that. I get to reveal the card, and it turns out to be a passing soldier. All Shadow War cards in Night Combat have an evade rating. That means that if I had any experience points, you can just pay experience points to discard these things. That represents you like stealthing your way through the night, avoiding them. Well, I don't have any experience points, so I can't do that. He has an alarm rating of 2. That means that if he goes for the alarm, I'm going to put a counter on him and a counter over here, and in 2 actions, not 2 turns, in 2 actions, he will reach the alarm. If I don't down him in that time, he will then alert the entire base, at which point people start spilling onto the map to come get me only 4 actions later. A nice thing about the passing soldier, though, is that if at the end of every game turn, I'm going to roll a die. On a 7 or higher, I just get to discard him because he's a passing soldier, so that's kind of nice. I want to find out what my other threat though is out there, so to do that I'm going to have good old Douglas discard an action card, because I want to find out what all of these guys are before I start shooting anyone. Okay, so he is a guard. He has an evade of 2, an alarm of 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the guard. If I have enough actions and resources left, I'll take on the passing soldier. And if I can't, I'm going to hope that he just kind of drifts off into the night. So, now that I have Fan here positioned in the houses, what I'm going to have him do is line up a shot on the guard. Now, because he is an unaware target, I get to draw an unaware counter. But either way, Fan has to commit his action. So he's like lining up the shot, and now we see what kind of shot he has. So I draw a counter over here, and it turns out to be a great lineup. He's got him right in his sights. It's an automatic EKIA, which means I don't have to roll for the attack, I don't have to roll to defeat the cover, I don't have to roll for ammo, I just drop the guy. And in doing so, he comes off the map. Fan here gets an experience point for that, and his shot it generates 1 point worth of noise because I was going to have him fire in semi-auto, which I should have declared. So that thing goes back into the cut. At that point, I have 1 action left over from Douglas. So in order to kind of move him in there, he has a movement of 2. I'm going to discard a card, so he'll use his night goggles. So I don't have to pay the entrance cost. Douglas moves in, which takes an action. It has an entrance cost of 3. He has a movement of 2, so I have to pay 1 discard. Now, when I fired that shot, I would then roll to see if the passing soldier happened to hear on a 3 or less. He doesn't, so that's good. So now Douglas moves on in there. he's going to generate 2 points worth of noise, unless if I roll shadows on a 7 or higher, which I do. So it only generates 1 point of noise, which is good because that second point would have taken me into a whole nother category. So again, I check for the passing soldier, and he gets a 4, which is not quite good enough. So he is unaware that we're here. So at this point, I have used up all of my actions. I have nothing else to do. It becomes the end of the turn. So at this point, what I'm going to do is, because he is unaware, he does not move, he does not shoot, he's just happily going about his business. Good old Conway here does not have any kind of reinforcement roll, but there is a reinforcement roll in the houses of a 1 through 6. That means if I roll a 1 through 6, another guy is going to appear, and I add to that die roll the value of the next card. So in actuality, that card will only appear on a 1 through 4. And it does not appear, so it just gets discarded. Then I check to see, does this guy drift off into the night? And he'll do so on a 7 or higher. He does not, so he's still in play. It becomes the end of the game turn. So I have a noise reduction of 3, but it's really only a 2 because he's in play. So my noise comes down by 2. So a little noisy, but not so bad. It then becomes the next game turn. So my turn counter goes from 17 down to 16. All of my actions reset. And at this point, I could wait for this passing soldier and maybe roll another die at the end of the turn. My noise level's pretty low. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to have Fan here take the shot on him. So Fan declares the action. He declares that this is going to be a semi-auto shot. He then looks to see what kind of shot he has, and he has a +3. So he's going to be hitting on a 6 +3, so he's going to be hitting on a 3. The passing soldier has a defeat cover of 3, so I need to roll a pair of 3s or higher in order for this to hit. And I get a 3 to defeat cover, a 9 on the attack die roll, so that soldier is brought down, which means that Fan now gets a second experience point. The passing soldier is down. This goes back, and even though there's no one out there to hear it, that shot does make 1 point. Lucky I didn't run out of ammo in the process. So at this point, what I'm going to try to do is get people kind of back together again. So Conway here is going to spend an action. And also I'll spend an action card for him so he can use his night goggles this turn. That will move him into the houses. He has a movement of 2, discard of 3 to get in there, so I got to discard yet 1 more card to get him in there. He moves in. I then roll for his shadows. He's pretty stealthy though, so he'll succeed on a 7 or higher. He does, so I only make 1 point worth of noise. At this point, Fan has an action. He's just going to kind of sit on it. My main soldier Douglas here, he'll use one of his actions to refill his hand, with the reinforcement showing up on a 1 through 6 +1, so it's really a 1 through 5. And a reinforcement does not show up, so I discard that. That ends the turn. I have 15 turns left. My noise level is pretty high though, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hang out here. Everyone's going to save their actions, and I'm going to let a game turn go by in order to reduce my noise level by another 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And that's about as low as it can get. I can like spend another turn here if I want to, but I don't want to get too close on the time. So at that point, I'm going to assume that one of these cards is an action card that will let me play the location. So my next location, unfortunately, is a checkpoint. Entrance cost of 4 with a +2 due to night penalty, reinforcing on a 1 to 2, so not a lot of reinforcements. The bad point though is that the hostiles here are a little extra alert. So what that means is they treat pause results as going for the alarm. So if I do anything to kind of get their attention, they're going to immediately start going for the alarm button, so that's going to be bad. With 58 point mission, I get 4 points worth of hostiles. So I get 1, 2, 3, and then a big old 3 more. So this could be really bad for me. So with that in place, first thing I want to do is I want to kind of scout out, see how things are going. Oh, he should have had his action returned. So Conway here, again, he's just kind of bringing up the rear. So I'm going to have him kind of investigate with his night goggles, see what's going on here. He's going to spend an action. Oh, each of these guys should get their unrevealed counters, or sorry, unaware counters. So I'm going to reveal the big 3-point threat. And unfortunately, it's a big old machine gun team, so that's not good. Having Conway look around a little bit more to see what the 2-point threat is. And it's a guard post, which makes sense because they're here at a checkpoint. And then I'm then going to discard a card using my own night goggles to see what this final hostile is out here. And it's a passing soldier, so hopefully he will just kind of take care of himself and drift off if I don't get to him this turn. With all this in place, one of the so passing soldier will go away, but the guard post here, in order to get in there, I have to pay 2 XP for each soldier to enter this location. But luckily Fan here, he has his 2. So he's going to pay the 2 XP. I'm then going to pay the action card for him to use his goggles, which means that I don't have to pay the night penalty of 2. It's then an entrance cost of 4. He has a movement of 3, which means I only have to pay 1 discard to get him in there. So he moves on in with the cost of an action. I then roll to see if I can get his shadows of 9 or higher. I don't, so he makes 2 points worth of noise. I then roll to see did anyone hear that noise, and they did. On a 3 or less, somebody pauses. So a random hostile hears him. So 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9 with 10 re-rolling. So the 4 to 6 guy, the passing soldier, instead of being unaware, he now pauses. Now pauses all by itself doesn't have any kind of bad effect. But if he gets a second pause in the same turn, he will go from pausing to going for the alarm. At the end of the turn, he'll go back to unaware. So I have a couple choices here. I can take out the passing guard, but he still might just drift off on his own on a 7 or higher. I can also go after the guard post. The guard post itself has an added difficulty in that it has 2 reticles. It's assumed that each hostile is kind of isolated out there in the landscape somewhere, but these 2 guards are like side by side. If you shoot one of the reticles of a hostile card, the card automatically goes from unaware or pausing to full-on going for the alarm because they're standing side by side. So I've got to make sure that if I take on this guard post and start putting fire on it, I can actually take it out this turn or within a few actions, or else they're going to be sounding the alarm in 2. So I'm going to give that a try. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to direct Fan to use an action to do a semi-auto attack on the guard post. Now luckily these guys are still unaware. If I were shooting at the passing guard I wouldn't get my bonus counter, but luckily it turned out that way. And luckily I get an EKIA, so that just downs one of those 2 guards. What that does though, and again I don't check for defeat cover or ammo or anything else, but it does make a point of noise. So I roll to see does a random hostile hear this noise on a 3 or higher, 3 or lower, sorry. They do. Since he is already paused, he can still do this again, at which point he'll start going for the alarm. So it's an 8. So luckily it's these guys who heard the noise, but it doesn't really matter because he just suffered an EKIA, so he goes from unaware to pausing all the way up to going for the alarm. So it has like a little 1 over here. The corresponding counter also has a 1, so that way I can track, because if I take him down before he gets to the alarm, then this comes off of the track and I don't have a problem. He's going to reach the alarm in 2 actions, so that's going to be kind of a problem. Unfortunately, Fan has used all of his actions. Conway has used all of his actions. That leaves Douglas over here. So I've got to get Douglas in there and shooting in 2 actions. So to do that, I'm going to use, and I can't engage him at range 1 because I've only got a submachine gun. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use an action to move Douglas in. Douglas has a move of 2, but I also have to spend a card in order to negate that nighttime penalty with his goggles. So I've got a movement of 2. It has an entrance of 4. Luckily I have 2 cards left, so I can pay that entrance fee. I'm now in there, but I have 1 action left. He is not an unaware target anymore, so I don't get those really nifty bonus counters. So this should be a pretty easy shot. My MP5 hits on a 7, plus 1 on my attack die roll for the ANPEQ15. Also, it gives me plus 1 on the defeat cover die roll. So at this point, I only need to roll a 6 to hit and a 2 to defeat cover. Here's my attack die roll. Okay, that's not a good start. And my defeat cover die roll. If I can suppress him with a good defeat cover die roll, well, just about any defeat cover die roll other than a 1, I will at least suppress him, which will stop him from further going for the alarm. Okay, so the worst die roll ever. I have no effect on him. I am out of actions, and that attack action actually put him into sounding the alarm, at which point the mission says that they will react to the alarm in 4 actions. So I have 4 actions before the reinforcements start getting onto the board, and those will be the reactionary forces. So I have 4 actions to move all of this way through the mission before the reactionary forces start appearing on the map as the reinforcement rolls. Also, all of these hostiles will now come in revealed, and I will no longer use the unaware counters, which means that my mission just pretty much got near impossible to complete at this point due to some bad planning on my part, and I really should not have pushed my luck. I should have waited, so my fault on this one. But on the good side, you guys got to see all of the new stuff of Shadow War, and hopefully my next mission goes better. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I look forward to your comments on the Kickstarter campaign.